Welcome to another episode of Patio Pondering Podcast. Today I have Clark Bell from Utah. Now you're wondering, how did I get hooked up with somebody from Utah? Well, fun fact, I have an aunt that is from Utah, and she's a Utah State Utahan, not a BYU or University of Utah Utahan. So that's my connection to Utah, and I went to Park City once. Clark Bell has a biography that hit me when I read it, and there's two things that stood out. One, snowboarder. Crazy. So how do you have snowboarders in agriculture? And the second one was the last paragraph of his biography is really applicable to agriculture today, where he mentions world global fertilizer shortages, disruptions, and soil degradation are at the center of Clark's work, where it intersects with food, environment, and geopolitics. Wow. I know this wasn't written in 2026, but how applicable to the situation we find ourselves in agriculture today. So welcome, Clark.
Jim, thanks for having me on. Excited to be on Patio Pondering with you.
Clark, can you give us a little bit of path, how you went from raising sod on your parents' farm in Utah to being a professional snowboarder, and now you're at the confluence of fertilizer shortage and geopolitics?
Yeah, definitely have a unique set of circumstances that shaped me to be where I'm at in my entrepreneurial journey and as the CEO of NanoYield. So in 1977, my grandfather, who was the superintendent of a school district here in Utah, had a finance director, this would have been equivalent to his CFO, that had been raising sod with his family, and it was providing some good cash flow and some savings that he could afford to pay for college and all the pressures that we feel with raising children. My grandpa was really impressed by his operation and had also just been called to work in D.C. for Carter at the Department of Education, and so he wanted to ensure that my family had an enterprise that could teach his four sons about hard work, and also have them be accountable and also earn some money. So the family looked at a couple different operations, and it came down to two businesses. One being the first Baskin-Robbins franchise in the state of Utah, right? Everybody loves ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
And in Utah, we actually consume the most amount of ice cream in comparison to any state. We enjoy copious amounts of ice cream here, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the other one was a sod farm. After discovery of looking into the two different businesses, the family decided they didn't want to be part of a franchise, and they started what was then Lake Mountain Turf Farms. Lake Mountain Turf Farms at that time was about 30-acre sod farm, and over the past nearly 47 years, we've grown it to be a 600-acre sod farm that primarily serves landscape contractors, sports field manager, golf courses, landscape architects, landscape designers, and of course residential homeowners here in the Salt Lake Valley. So as a kid, my first introduction into farming was going to the farm with my dad. I remember the first time I started making some money was when I was about 9 years old. I was taking seed and taking garden seed and lawn seed from a 50-pound bag and put into little tiny 1-pound bag pouches. And then also remember a time when my dad had me out there with my dog Fido. This is real stuff. Really was named Fido. Can't make this stuff up, Jim. Took Fido out to the farm with me, and my dad showed me how to move pipe, so that the pipe wouldn't leave an indent in the turf grass, and put me in front of what was then probably about a 30 to 40 acre plot of land, and showed me how to move one pipe, and then said, all right, now you got to move the rest of them. And that's what I did the rest of that day with my dog Fido, going out there, batting away at the flies, and experiencing farm life. So that's the basis of how I got into farming. Now let's fast forward and also rewind from where we are now. So it's 2026. Agriculture is under intense skepticism from modern America and from the world. As you mentioned, there's a lot of geopolitical pressures to agriculture. We've got to continue to grow crop that's going to be, that's going to provide caloric value to the broad audience, and everyone's a customer of agriculture. We've got to be able to clothe people, and we've got to do it with the limited resources. We actually have an abundance of calories that we're able to make, but the issue, of course, isn't necessarily just the crop, because as we know, it's a 5-year low for most commodity crops. But we've got to be able to use all of the inputs that we've used in the past in a more efficient manner. We're talking about fertilizer, we're talking about crop inputs, we're talking about the gas we put in our tractors, so on and so forth. And so in 2013, I was introduced to nanotechnology from a friend that was using it in dry cleaning, and he had seen that we had been using pivot irrigation to put out liquid fertilizer onto our sod farm, and he had connected the dots and said, hey, have you ever thought about using nanoparticles to get a better use of your fertilizer? I looked at him like he had a third eye at the top of him and said, what are you even talking about? After a couple months of collaboration working with other researchers, we felt like we caught lightning in a bottle when we realized that nanoparticles have a lot of interesting capabilities. More so, what they really do is they help with the efficiency factor of making fertilizer and crop inputs like pesticides, like herbicides, insecticides, and other adjuvants. And they're able to make the crop inputs be absorbed at a higher efficiency on the leaf or in the root. And we've now been working on that for 12 years. And Jim, in 2025, nanoliquid technology and nanocoat technology was applied on over 11 million acres globally. So that's how we got our start into where we are now.
That is interesting. And your biography of both the farm, the sod farm, and how your grandfather made the decision many years ago to jump into ag, and your progression and starting 2013 with nanoparticles gives us a lot of directions. But I'm going to start with one question. What's your favorite of the 31 Baskin-Robbins flavors?
Oh my gosh, Jim, I am a chocolate peanut butter guy. Okay. Every time. Yeah. If it says Reese's, it's going in my mouth.
Oh, there you go. Yes, we're friends. No wonder I wanted to interview.
Yep. My wife is a fruit sorbet person,
okay.
And I think she's crazy. For me, if I'm going to get ice cream, I'm going to make it so that it's the worst, the worst thing I can put in my body. All the sugars, all the fats, put it in here. It's got peanut butter.
2,500 calories in this one flurry.
If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right.
Totally. I'm going to be blunt, Clark. Sod's not real ag, and I'm saying that with quotes.
Yep, I understand where you come from. It's a horticultural crop, for sure.
Yeah, but it's still in the College of Ag at Purdue. It's horticulture and plant sciences. So how have you been able to overcome that bias against, nanotechnology might work in sod or it might work in irrigation, but how does it apply to real agriculture?
Yep, for sure. So our first approach with applying nanotechnology into agriculture, first we introduced it to all the fellow sod farmers we know. My father, Warren Bell, was the president of Turfgrass Producers International. TPI, as it is known, is the largest trade association of sod farmers globally. So, we essentially know every sod farmer in the world. As we began introducing the technology to these different sod farmers, we found a really interesting market in citrus growers. Again, not a major ag crop, but it was a beachhead where we had a lot of great success. After we started to have great success with citrus orchards in Florida, we then got introduced to watermelons in Arizona. Again, another specialty agricultural play. And so essentially from 2014 to about 2019, NanoYield was only on specialty agricultural crops. Why that was beneficial is generally specialty agriculture has more budgets to essentially spend on unique innovations that are coming to agriculture. So it gave us an opportunity that we could really refine our product, refine our message, and find the best way that the technology could fit. Once we started working with corn, soybean, wheat, cotton, the major ag, like you said, the big ag crops in 2018, that's when we really started to see even more so the benefit of what we have with our NanoYield products. And now, year to date, I referenced we're on 11 million acres in 2025. I would guess that we're between 7.5 to 8 million acres that was on corn and soybeans alone. And so we essentially, went from having our technology on specialty agriculture, really utilizing the best way the technology can work on crops. And nanoparticles are crop agnostic. It works on corn, it works on citrus, it works on cola, it works on cannabis. It doesn't matter. Nanoparticles help with the absorption of crop inputs on whatever they're going to be applied. What we then did is, after really developing and doing well with specialty agriculture, as we got on to the big ag and the commodity crops, that's when we hit scale. And of course now, you look at NanoYield and you look at our data sets. Pretty much is always a commodity crop now. That's where we're really focusing on the 200 million acres plus of corn and beans in the United States.
Well, Clark, my training in my doctorate is swine nutrition.
Okay.
And swine nutrition, cattle nutrition, inside the gut is the same thing that happens in a field. We put nutrients in and then we extract it. In the case, this is a mammal instead of a plant. But one of the problems that we have in ag, and particularly commodity production, is we use fertilizer and it's a wink and a prayer. We put dry blend on, we put manure, and we throw it out there, and we say the crop is going to use it, and we get. Whereas in livestock, it's a little more controlled because we have a controlled environment of that gut. And we can control the environment of the animal, but we can't control the plant. How were you able to overcome that wink and a prayer attitude towards fertilizer coming from the specialty and moving into the commodity crops?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we really had to do well is, one, the price point has to make sense for commodity ag, right? We're able to scale and manufacture nanoparticles with the highest efficiency, and we don't really have much competition that can manufacture nanoparticles at the price point we can. So generally speaking, when you add a product like NanoPro, that's our flagship product, Jim Smith, for carrier adjuvants. It's a carrier adjuvant that helps pesticides. It's about $3.75 an acre. Okay, and so the price point really works for commodity. The next thing we had to do is, nobody likes being the first test, right? And so we collaborated with a lot of universities, a lot of third-party researchers, people like Beck's Professional Farm Research, the great people at PTI. They then took our products, NanoPro, NanoN, NanoCoat, and then tested it out themselves. And then we were able to get some really good data sets that then we were able to showcase to our distributors and our dealers. And that's how, we really were able to get over the chasm of getting over the wink and a prayer, is by that third-party verification by these researchers and universities. So first and foremost, price point had to be right economically. Second, we had to be able to show a positive ROI. Nobody wants to spend money on agriculture unless they know it's going to be a positive ROI for them. For us, we see anywhere from 3 to 11x on ROI on commodity crops. Third, the next thing we had to do is, of course, showcase not just the ROI, but what is the actual science and mode of action, the delivery that makes this work. Once we're able to do all three of those things, Jim, that's when we are able to really get things hopping, and why we're having the success we're having through this day.
Can we dive into that just a little bit
Let's do it.
On describing the science? Because it seems like agriculture is bifurcated. One, we get enamored with the science and we think, oh, this is really cool and it works. Or we poo-poo it because, oh, that's too science. So how were you able to overcome both of those and use the showcase of the science to advance nanotechnology?
Yeah, so the first thing we do when we explain how nanoliquid technology is different is, one, we talk to people, what is a nanoparticle? Then we talk about how nanoliquid particles load, and then how do nanoparticles deliver, okay? So, Jim, nanoparticles are used across all sorts of industries. We're talking drug delivery, antimicrobial coatings, optics, solar, batteries. Most likely every American touches or uses something with nanoparticles on a daily basis. Smartphones, coatings on your car, your computer, so on and so forth. Okay? So first we then talk about nanoparticles that are readily used. Second thing we bring up to people is, how small are nanoparticles? Okay? And so we showcase to people, you use urea, which is 0.36 nanometers. You use glyphosate on your farm, which is 2 nanometers. A NanoYield nanoparticle is going to be anywhere between 10 to 100 nanometers, okay? And within that nanoparticle is where we load things like glyphosate, urea, potassium, to have them be loaded and then released onto a crop. And so all of our nanoparticles are based out of silica, so they're porous. Then there's an internal loading that's conducted through ion exchange, diffusion, cations, anions, polar molecules, all those different things that we're putting out. There's an internal loading of putting those inside that nanoparticle. And then there's an external loading where we create what we call the nanoshield. The nanoshield is what protects those nanoparticles before they actually go on to being released as cargo into the leaves and the roots. And so what we've done is we've made it so that we talk to people, what is nanoparticles, what is nanotechnology, and then we talk about how we are used to delivering inputs is through diffusion and active transport. And so what we do at what we do with our nanoliquid technology is we use an additional mechanism, and that's called endocytosis. The simplest way to explain endocytosis, Jim, is it's a mechanism that's used to rapidly absorb loaded nanoparticles, similar to like a Trojan horse. And that's how we talk through that basis, showcase visuals, showcase microscopy and data sets for people to understand what is nanotechnology. We typically call that Nano 101 for people, and generally by the end of it, people understand how nanotechnology has a fit for agriculture.
That's cool. Using a lot of words that I learned many years ago at Purdue. How is the adaptation of the technology? I mean, you said you're growing about 5% of U.S. corn and soybean acres this year. Is that an exponential growth? Is it linear?
Let's see. We're probably between 2 and 3%.
Okay.
I think we're probably numbers, right? So we've got a long ways to go, Jim. Yeah. It's been, but the growth has been pretty rapid the past 2 years, right? And so, we've essentially doubled the acres we've been on just in the past 2 years. And so, I would say that's more exponential. And as you look at our scale, especially with how we're partnering with many distributors, dealers, and manufacturers that are now taking on nanoliquid technology, we've got so many acres to cover. And that's just on the U.S. alone, right? I mean, we've got NanoYield Brazil, we've got NanoYield Chile, Peru, NanoYield Central American, Caribbean. We've got our partners in Bangladesh, India, Greece. I mean, there's so many different countries that are now taking on this technology that we have a lot of basis for the technology to be utilized and to benefit other parts of agriculture throughout the world.
Well, I think what you're talking about in general terms is more precision feeding fertilizer and nutrient products to crops, correct?
Correct.
As we get more pressure from fertilizer shortage, more pressure from a pricing standpoint, as we get more pressure both domestically and internationally, we need to continue to be, as we have been pushed since Earl Butz days, to be least cost producers. And part of that is being better at using our fertilizer dollars.
Correct.
This is really neat. I always think of things from a scientist in a pig gut perspective, and what you're talking about with the nanotechnology allows us to be a little more controlled in how we allow or get these nutrients and allow a plant to take them up.
You got it. And Jim, when you look at 2026, there's increasing pressure. We've never had as much pressure in agriculture as we've had now, from a regulatory standpoint, economic standpoint, environmental standpoint, agronomic standpoint. There's all types of pressures that farmers make. One thing that is glaringly obvious to all farmers is that efficiency is of top of mind for them. And so there's never been a perfect storm for what we're accomplishing and what we're doing in order to help these farmers be even more efficient with their fertilizer and inputs. Because fact of the matter, like we highlighted before, Jim, grain is not selling for what they've done in the past, and inputs are they're pretty darn expensive. And so there's got to be some ways where they can use lowest labeled rate, or they can do some reduced rates and have the same outcome. And that's where we really come in and help farmers across the U.S.
Plus, you also have the feel-good environmental story. We farm in the western Lake Erie Basin, which has massive pressure on phosphorus because of algae blooms in Lake Erie.
Yep.
That pushes us to be a little more conscientious about how we use phosphorus in general, but fertilizer overall. And as we get those pressures from non-ag, whether it's political or just from the consumer, we need to be more precise in how we do these things. And nanotechnology gives us that ability to target nutrition instead of just throwing it on the ground.
You got it. Yep, you got it, Jim. Yep, exactly what we're accomplishing.
Cool. This is neat technology, and it's the kind of stuff that makes agriculture better. But I want to shift just a little bit, because our interview got postponed, and I think it's serendipity that it got postponed, because right now it's something really cool that our family enjoys every 4 years, and that's the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. So our connection between talking about nanotechnology and Clark Bell sitting in Utah is snowboarding. I don't know any professional snowboarder that's in agriculture. How did you become a snowboarder?
Yeah. So I was more on the amateur side, right?
Okay.
Our CFO, Josh Roberts, was an actual pro snowboarder, and he was the one that actually got me sponsors that I could, ride and snowboard for free on many of these resorts. And so, growing up in Salt Lake City, Utah, we would farm really heavy on during the on season, and then it's pretty hard to harvest sod from Thanksgiving till March. So, Jim, what is one to do? What is one to do during the winter months if you live in Utah? I have a passion for snowboarding. I have a passion for finding refuge in the mountains and for carving on the beautiful powder that we have in Salt Lake City, Utah. So, at the age of 16, I kind of got bored with some of the team sports that I had been, involved in: basketball, wrestling, football, jiu-jitsu, baseball, all those sports I did growing up. And I got into high school, and my three biggest interests were: 1, girls, 2, punk rock, and 3, snowboarding. Snowboarding is the one of all of those things that I found, I could put a lot in it and get a lot back from it. Especially as I, try to sharpen my skill set, by going constantly. And so snowboarding was a big part of my life from the age of 16 to about 24. And so that's my background as a former snowboarder who now just does it as a hobby. And, what I learned from snowboarding as it relates to agriculture today, there's been an abundance of great things that have brought that into my life.
Did you start with skis, or did you just start with snowboard?
I first had my first skiing lesson at 3 years old, and I didn't start snowboarding until 5th grade. So from 3 to 11, I was a skier, and then from 11 years on, I've been a snowboarder. I do have a pair of skis, and we'll go to, we still have a couple of resorts that you can only go to as a skier, Jim. So I have it for those renditions, but now my days on the resorts are typically spent with my children, and all of them are up and coming snowboarders. So spending all the time on the snowboard these days.
Hey, let's go to a blue. I'd really love to do a black diamond, but I'll do a blue with you.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds great.
So when you started skiing, was that in the long ski years, or were you transitioned into the short skis?
I was in the long ski years.
Okay.
I do have primarily short skis now, because easier to carve on and they absorb better. They're wider, but I definitely learned on long skis.
So my wife skied on the Oregon ski team many years ago, and we went to Breckenridge as a family a couple years ago, and she brought her skis, and they were 210s. Skinny. They almost look like cross-country skis compared to the 170 fat boys I was using. It's crazy how that's changed. And you've seen it with the snowboard technology.
Oh yeah, I mean they took the best of both worlds, right? They saw how these snowboarders were able to overcome a lot of the chatter, were able to carve, with more efficiency. Hey, there's that word again.
Yeah.
And they took the technology from snowboarding, put it into the skis. I actually was watching the ski slope style at lunch with my family at a diner.
Okay.
And we were watching these skiers who just move, just with such precision and just can do amazing things on these rails and off these jumps. And I actually said to my kids, Jim, as they were watching, I said, it used to be a lot harder to do that on skis until snowboarding came around. And they looked at me and they were like, what? And I said, well, they took snowboarding technology, put it into the skis, and look what's happened to the sport.
Oh, it's crazy what you can do on a piece of plastic, whether it's a snowboard or skis these days.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Oh, my sons prefer to snowboard, and it's really cool to watch them. Now, granted, they snowboard twice a year, nothing like you and your family can do, because we're in Indiana where it's flat and we're like at 950 feet above sea level, so we have to drive to find snow.
Of course.
As you've worked with your family, it's non-traditional ag. Your father or grandfather was in the politics of Washington, D.C., which is not raising crops, whether it's Utah or Indiana or any place in between. How have you been able to integrate yourself as a family into being farmers?
Yeah, I think for the most part, when I meet with traditional ag people and we talk about the similarities of our industry, sod farming, and let's just use soybean growers, we have quite a bit in common, right? Mm-hmm. We both have to take care of the land. We've got to manage our water correctly. We've got a number of equipment pressures we have to utilize to produce. We've got to maintain our crops. We use a number of different inputs, that are similar. We use nitrogen, we use phosphorus, we use potassium. Heck, we use Roundup. We use a lot of the same things that the soybean growers use. The main difference for us is in sod, we're essentially harvesting our crop every day from April through November. And with the soybean grower, he's harvesting one time, and that's typically being done over 30 to 45 days. And so there's a lot of similarities that we have that we've been able to find each other. We both plant seed. We both have to nourish that seed to get it into a plant that will produce and yield, and we see it all the way through. So that's been our way to really, get aligned with big ag, I guess, with our background as a horticultural crop. And one thing that's interesting about Jim is we actually do grow some commodity crops at our farm. We do grow corn. We do grow alfalfa. The alfalfa is the main cash crop in the state of Utah. And so we have some similarities of also utilizing and growing hay that's very similar to, corn growers who are transitioning from growing corn to beans to hay, every 3 years, so on and so forth. So a lot of similarities we find as we talk to them.
The big difference, and I'm glad you brought up alfalfa because that might be the transition between sod and soybeans, is sod, you're taking a bunch of nutrients away from that soil.
Oh, a ton. Yeah, I mean, basically all of it, Jim, is being taken away. Correct.
You're not building organic matter, you're taking it.
We take it all. Yeah, we're taking it all, and we constantly have to replenish these fields, right? No doubt about it.
When you're talking to a corn or soybean farmer, or even a cotton farmer, I would think your discussion is a lot easier because you're talking about lower levels of nutrients, and you can build a bank. Does that help your sales approach?
It does. Yes. So the intensity at scale is much harder, of course, with commodity crops, because in order for them to make similar revenue to a sod farm, they got to be on 3,000 to 10,000 acres, right? Whereas the intensity at the micro level at a sod farm, that's, let's say, 300 to 1,000 acre sod farm, is similar to what's being done there. And so then, of course, it's then finding out the agronomic practices, and of course, finding out the ways that you can improve your farm which every farmer loves to discuss with other people about the improvements they've done on their farm and how somebody can utilize that. I've never met a farmer, Jim, that doesn't want to talk to people about the improvements they've made on their farm and how they can use that to pattern what they're doing with their agricultural practices.
Oh, yeah. The difference typically with commodity is how they transfer or how the tractors have gotten bigger, their planters gotten bigger.
Correct.
Well, this is really interesting because it's a side of agriculture that we don't see. Number one, the sod farming and the specialty crops. They are farming. They are agriculture. Even though we put an H in front of it and they're in a different building on campus, it's still agriculture.
Correct.
But you're talking about a more precise nutrition, and I think that's a lesson that we need to take industry-wide in being more efficient and more sustainable with what we're using.
100%. Yep, yeah. You've nailed it. I mean, that's the key component for what everyone needs to do moving forward.
And I don't mean the sustainable in the artsy-fartsy, let's all eat granola and wear straw hats. I mean sustainable in the balance between what we need to grow a crop and what we can use in a crop to maintain profitability, or in some cases, reduce losses.
Yeah, Jim, I've been doing kitchen table conversations with farmers at their homes, at their place of business, for 12 years now. The biggest difference of what I'm having in my conversations with farmers now is all of them are looking at their profit and loss statements, and they're looking at ways they can optimize it. And the number one thing that almost all of them are saying is, I need to put out less fertilizer. Mm-hmm. That's been the major shift from 2024 to 2026. And so the key component for all farmers is, what is the technology I can use to help me do that? And it's not just going to be a delivery system like what we have. It's going to be making sure that, I'm using machine learning and artificial intelligence to, optimize my sprayers so that they're being applied correctly. It's, looking at my telemetry, my soil reports to make sure I'm applying the nutrition in the right parts of the fields, because I'm rich in some areas and, poor in some areas. And so making sure I'm not being, over applying. And so I think that, I think this is a movement that's going to continue to be at the forefront of agriculture for, the next decade, for us to find out better ways we can utilize fertilizer. And as we do that, that's going to overcome a lot of the limiting factors we've had for yield. Because the fact is, we've been able to see this time and time again, Jim. Growers, when they use nanoliquid technology, they can use it with the exact same amount they were doing before, and they'll definitely see yield benefit. But what's actually really interesting, Jim, is they can use the same amount of technology, the same amount of fertilizer they've been using, reduce it by 20 to 25%, utilize NanoYield products, and they'll see savings by not using as much product, and they'll actually grow more. They'll actually have that limiting factor of putting out too much fertilizer will actually help them with their yield. And so I think this is a huge opportunity that we have to continue to help farmers manifest so that they can achieve the results they want. And I think it's something that farmers are going to continue to seek as they go to grow their crops.
I would contend that the pressures are similar to what our ancestors had. It's just that we're dealing with a lot more zeros behind what it takes to deal with those pressures.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a great way to put it. And there's a lot of noise, and you got to find the signal. And to find the signal, you got to be with the right partners. And so that's the difference between the past and where we are now.
So as you're working with producers, and it doesn't matter if it's specialty crops or commodity ag products, how much of a team do the more successful operators have?
Oh my gosh, that's an excellent question. I would say the operator that has a successful relationship with a myriad of dealers, not just one co-op, but they work with a co-op, independent retailer, they work with a soil agronomist, they work with a crop agronomist, right? They work with somebody that's helping them with their custom operations, whether that's harvesting, whether that's application. Those farmers I've found are the ones that are the most successful. So the bigger the team, the better the manager, and that being the farmer, because the farmer is the manager, the more success they're going to have. And of course, the key element here, Jim, is you got to make sure that that farmer, they understand, they understand what their goal is, and they have everyone aligned with that same goal. So, if it's 350 bushel acre, if that's the goal for 2026, here's what we got to do. Here's the partners we got to line up. Here's the insurance we got to buy. Here's the inputs we got to have. Here's the equipment that we've got to have structured for that. Those farmers that, go through all of those preparations will get the right outcome.
Well, I'm seeing that on our own operation. And as we have more zeros behind what we're dealing with, you need to spread that risk out through diversification. But I also contend, as you mentioned very well, you have to spread out that knowledge base, because I sure as heck don't have all the answers.
Heck yeah. Yep. You want to find the subject matter expert in all things.
And I think in ag, and I think it goes a little bit back to your snowboarding, when you're the one that's delivering the grain, or you're the one that's driving the tractor, or you're the one that drops into that black diamond as a snowboarder, you're alone.
Correct.
So getting that team to help you before you drop is key to success.
Yep, I think it's very similar. The start of a crop year is just like being at the top of the mountain and looking at all the moguls and jumps and sharp turns and carves that you've got to make, and making sure that you have the proper partners and the proper reports, the soil tests, the outcomes of what needs to make to get that yield is the key component. So I think it's a great simile for us to think through.
So I'm thinking back to looking at that map of Breckenridge when you were there a few years ago. You can look at the map and go, okay, I'm going to start at the top of the run, and I'm going to end up down here, and I kind of have an idea of it's going to go this way. But that doesn't tell you what's going to happen when you actually are on that run. And it's no different than a crop year. Like, okay, I know I'm going to start here, whether it's citrus or sod or corn, and I'm going to end up here. But there's a lot of things going in between, and the team helps you with, there's a group of skiers that are in my way. Oh, if there's a mogul that I didn't anticipate. So I think that resiliency in the run that you have with your snowboard is similar to the resiliency that we have to have in agriculture to be able to zig and zag in the middle of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. I went night riding with my son on Saturday evening. He's 11 years old, and we went from 4 o'clock till 9 p.m. I believe we got 8 runs in.
Oh, boy.
The first 4 runs, Jim, he nailed it. Everything went great. Mm-hmm. We primarily were doing greens. We then went on a blue run, and we went on a blue where he was going down a hill. He speed checked too much, that he started to slow down, and he got on a flat area. And flat and snowboards, those don't work, right? We don't have poles, so you got to unstrap and you got to skate out. Well, his legs were really tired, and so he had to strap out accordingly. And then he tried to go up a hill to get some momentum, and he strapped in, went down the hill, wasn't able to get through the flat area, right? So then he had to strap again, and then he had to walk about 80 yards, right? Ooh. And so Ethan, my son, was then really frustrated and just said, "Dad, I want to take a break. Can we go and get some hot chocolate?" So we went into the lobby, or excuse me, the restaurant, got some hot chocolate. Jim, I think it was only $24 for 2 hot chocolates. It was a swell deal, right? Yeah. And I talked to him about, in life, we've got to be able to overcome obstacles and stay positive. And we talked about how he got really negative and he was saying, I can't and I won't. Mm-hmm. And once he got into his head that I can do this, I just got to walk out or just make this, get through this outcome, is the key to life. And it's the same thing with farmers. Got to maintain positivity, and you've got to align yourself with the right partners to get the outcome of what you want. And again, there's a lot of noise right now, a lot of geopolitical pressures, a lot of tariffs, input prices, interest rates, all these tough things that we're facing as growers. And I think if you're able to maintain positivity and get the right subject matter experts, that's how you'll be ultimately successful.
Well, if you build a team then you're able to control what you can control.
110%.
Then you're not worried about China. You're not worried about Brazil. You're not worried about Russia. You're not worried about what Trump's going to do. You're not worried about what the Senate's going to do. I'm just going to do the best I can to control what I can control, and we'll see what comes at the end.
Yep, I think you nailed it, Jim.
Well, this has been a fun conversation, Clark.
Jim, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So we end every conversation with 5 questions, and they're ag-centric. And at the end of the year, I'm going to do a episode where I kind of extract the most common answers. I haven't shared them with you, so here we go.
Let's do it.
What is one lesson that you take from ag with you every day?
When the going gets tough, I get tough.
That's a great one. If you could have coffee or sit down with any historical ag figure, who would it be?
Oh, man. Wow. That's a good question. I would probably do Norman Borlaug, the father of the Green Revolution. I'd want to talk to him and just learn everything that he, I would love to sit down for him for 2 hours and get his perspective from, starting to test wheat in Mexico to being a Nobel Prize winner. That would be a really cool conversation.
You're not the first one to say that. And I'd say 20% of my answers are Norman Borlaug. What is one quirky or unappreciated thing about ag you think more people should know?
Quirky or unappreciated?
Yes.
I think in general, people don't realize how family-centric agriculture is, right? Almost every farm is a family business.
Mm-hmm.
I believe right now I believe it's gone down. It used to be 98% of farms were family owned. I think we're now like 96%. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So I think when I look at agriculture in America, I think this is a family business, and similar to biograss. I'm the 3rd generation in this farm. My kids will be the 4th generation. I think that's just something that's really unique and quirky about it, is how integrated it is with the family, and how all father, son, daughter, mother relationships are integrated with the family, but also with the business partnership and sharing a tax return.
We talk about the next generation in ag all the time. And if you compare it to, say, Master Blue dry cleaners in Fort Wayne, we don't hear them talk about, the next generation and the kids are doing this. It's just a business, whereas ag is family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is your favorite ag-related tool, product, or innovation?
My favorite innovation, being a sod farmer, I think it's got to be automated sod harvesters. You went from having someone that steers the tractor and steers the harvester to bring up the sod, and then at the back of the tractor you'd have a pallet, and then you would have 2 laborers that were stacking the sod on that pallet. This has been an innovation that's been around for 22 years now, and it just gets better. Where now you just need one operator to put 600 square feet on a pallet. So I would say it's the automated harvester that's for sod farming.
So that sod harvester has a cutter that lifts the sod, and then it makes the rolls and puts those rolls onto the pallet.
Yep, goes on a conveyor belt, gets rolled, or is flattened, and then it goes automatically onto a pallet instead of having two laborers stacking it on there accordingly.
So you go from 3 people to 1.
Yep, it's been a game changer for us.
So those 2 people now are running skid loaders or telehandlers to load it on the semi.
You got it.
Okay.
Or they're spreading compost, or checking water lines, so on and so forth.
Well, the final question, Clark, is what is one small change that could make a huge impact in ag's future?
Man, I could say a lot of things right now. For me, right now, there's been a big scare with the big ag input companies. You've got Syngenta, who's trying to IPO, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've gone to, I think it's the third time they're trying to, for ChemChina to IPO Syngenta itself. You then have Bayer, who's dividing their agriculture and their medicine and consumables. And then we recently saw, I believe it was last Tuesday, FMC, posted 2.2 billion negative income last year, and that they're essentially looking to sell off their business. Mm-hmm. And so I think the way that we have farmed and utilized ag input companies in the past has been very much driven by a global player that then brings that to the distributors and co-ops. I think the small thing with getting agriculture to have innovation at the local level and provided to local farmers, not being as reliant from these global players, is going to be the key component to success. And I think that small change will make local rural areas more profitable. It'll make people excited to support that local family that's bringing that innovation. And three, they're going to have their best interest to make their community thrive within agriculture. And so I think that small change of making farming even more local and entrepreneurial is going to be the way we really have a lot of change making moving forward.
Clark, if there was just this network of universities maybe that had the same mission, that maybe they could share land and help with this entrepreneur, maybe we could call it like maybe the land grant system. That'd be something really cool we could build, wouldn't it? That
would be really cool. I wish they would. That's a novel idea, Jim. They should do that.
Well, I think we're coming full circle where land grant mission in a century ago, even 60 years ago, was truly helping that local person. And then we became really successful at it. And we shared our knowledge, and companies grabbed that and made money. And now I think we're truly coming back full circle where the big companies are just saying, well, we can't afford to do that. Who could do it? Well, we already got the system in place. Let's just capitalize on it.
No doubt.
Well, Clark, it's been a great time with you today. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and talk with me in Indiana from Utah. And I'm looking forward to seeing what more can come from nanotechnology and what you're doing to help agriculture, both specialty and commodity crops.
Jim, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure to talk with you. And anytime you guys come skiing or snowboarding in Park City, please let me know. I'd be happy to get a couple turns with you.
Oh, no. I'll have to tell my wife we're going skiing.
Do it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jim.